Traits. What are they and how do they work? How many traits can I have? What are inactive traits? And can another lord get my own defeat trait? I put one of these questions out in a poll earlier this week, and someone literally jumped in my Discord that night to get the answer. It's actually surprisingly difficult to find this information anywhere, so this video should be your one-stop shop for anything and everything you want to know about traits. In Warhammer 3, your lord can receive traits that buff or debuff their character. Every lord starts out with their own unique starting trait, which doesn't really count towards your total. They can gain defeat traits by, you guessed it, defeating other legendary lords, and they can gain unique campaign traits by performing certain actions in combat or on the campaign map. How many traits can I have? Up to 40. This is hard-coded into the game and cannot be modded. If you've ever watched a Legend of Total War rating your Doomstack video, you've probably considered how cool it would be to stack 40 of your favorite traits onto a legendary lord. So you'll understand why I'm upset after I answer question 3. What are inactive traits? Picture this. You're deep into a long campaign. You just defeated another legendary lord and you don't get a defeat trait. You go to count your traits and you have less than 30, so you should be able to get it. Well, turns out you can't, because you already have 40 traits, but 16 of your traits are inactive and you don't realize you have them. Normally you can't see these, so in this example I'm using Spiffix Trait Manager mod to show you what I'm talking about. The darkened traits are currently inactive. Some traits only activate after you performed a certain action multiple times. But just like a Steam achievement that requires you to perform an action multiple times, this trait starts counting as soon as you start to meet the requirements for it. For example, it takes multiple battles against greenskins to get the Orcsbane trait. But as soon as you fight greenskins once, this trait takes up one of your 40 slots as an inactive trait, even if you never fight greenskins again and activate it. The worst part is there's no way to get rid of it without mods. In previous games, this never really bothered me, but now that there are currently 23 races, and in April there will be 24, these leadership traits are starting to get really annoying. If you're not careful, you can end up with more than half of your traits being practically useless. As far as complaints about this game go, this one's pretty small, but I really despise these pathetic leadership traits. They take up one of your 40 slots and prevent you from getting something that will actually help you. Okay, rank complete. It's time to answer, can you give your defeat trait to another lord? The answer is actually yes. It's a really cool hidden mechanic in the game. Most players don't discover this mechanic because, let's be real, the cost for losing your main army is so devastating, most casual players, like myself, end up loading an old save instead of continuing after a defeat. But even if you don't do this, it's easy to miss this mechanic because the game doesn't tell you when an enemy lord gains your defeat trait. Just know that if another lord defeats your legendary lord, they will get your defeat trait. This sounds like a problem, but there are actually a ton of cool ways you can exploit this mechanic. For instance, Mercy the Mad recently made a video about how you can give Vlad's defeat trait to other faction leaders to quickly generate blood kisses. As the greenskins in Norska, you can abuse this mechanic by giving your defeat trait to other lords before you confederate them. And in my upcoming Greatsword video, I abuse this mechanic again. But that's enough spoilers for now. Finally, here are some tips for maximizing your next playthrough if you want to trait manage your characters without mods and create a one-man Doomstack. After each victorious battle, you get to decide if you're going to kill or sell your captives. If you're trying to maximize your traits, you should always kill your captives after battle. The -3 leadership penalty to enemies is significantly better than the +5% battle loot. And if you ever sell your captives even once, you'll get an inactive trait that will prevent you from getting another defeat trait. Don't recruit any units with your lord. Even doing this once will give you the recruiter trait. Don't be in a settlement that is about to finish construction, or you'll start down the construction trait. Don't raid a settlement, or you'll start down the freebooter trait, and raiding doesn't really bring any money anyway. Don't reinforce any of your armies, or you'll start down the reinforcer trait. Don't let the enemy attack you, or you'll have to get the competent protector trait. This trait isn't bad, it's just really difficult to reach the final stage, where it finally gets good. My advice is just to avoid defensive battles. Spending an intern in forced march or ambush stance will start you down those traits. These traits are both pretty good, so you'd only really want to avoid these if you're trying to create a one-man Doomstack. The Sapper and Disciplinarian traits are almost impossible to avoid, so you might as well factor those into your 40 traits when you start. The Audacious trait activates as soon as you get involved in combat. Unfortunately, this trait is not very good, so if you can, I would have your reinforcing armies do all the fighting, and avoid combat with your lord until you have 40 traits. Finally, in the current state of the game, these pesky leadership traits are impossible to avoid, so you need to be careful which races you declare war with. For example, Scrag and Greases have some of the worst defeat traits in the game, so you want to avoid the Ogre Kingdoms until you have 40 traits. On the other hand, the Warriors of Chaos have 8 legendary lords now, and some of the best defeat traits in the game, so you definitely want to fight them. At the end of the day, the easiest way to trait manage a lord is just to use Spiffix mod. If you're having trouble understanding the mod, double click on the green icon to activate an inactive trait, and double click on the green icon for an active mod to get rid of it. Hope that helps. Tune in next time when I make great swords great again, this time in Warhammer 3.